There's a couple of reasons why sustainable development policy is so important for urban development. One is that if we start to view the world through a sustainability lens instead of just an urban development lens or even just a climate change lens, we start to see cities as really rich systems, connections between things, unintended consequences. So in my view, sustainability policy, reveals those connections between transportation planning and the integration of urban nature, between zoning and the creation of affordable housing. So seeing the connections between those and forces us to take a longer time horizon. It's not what we can do in a year or 3 years. It's what is that vision, that deeply transformative vision for our communities that we want in 10, 20, 50 years.
When we look at successful examples of urbanization, much like we describe here in Waterloo, there are sometimes unintended impacts that you need to prepare for and to be aware of. SDG 11.2 speaks to sustainable transportation systems and ensuring particularly that public transit systems are focused on, that they become more robust, and that options are available for all members of the community.
The region of Waterloo had plans for LRT or light rail transit since 1976 actually. In their first official plan, they identified plans to have a train running eventually from Cambridge to Waterloo, connecting the three cities of Kitchener, Cambridge, and Waterloo. In 2014, the region of Waterloo funded that work, and in 2017 opened the light rail transit line, which is a 19-kilometer line that connects Kitchener to Waterloo as a phase 1 of the project, and phase 2 will connect from Kitchener to Cambridge.
It was a milestone with the LRT system being developed to link the three cities of Kitchener, Cambridge, and Waterloo. That was definitely going to change how people move around and through the city and the region. The Transportation Master Plan had a defining decision through a complete streets policy, which is essentially to plan, design, maintain and operate roads for all users. So the master plan developed an on and off road network of multi-use paths, multi-use trails, community trails, sidewalks, on-road cycling, really just making those connections to allow people to move around the city and to other key destinations by different modes than the auto.
As communities intensify, green spaces become incredibly more important for community well-being. SDG 11.7 speaks to safe, inclusive, accessible green spaces and public spaces that are really available and safe for a diversity of uses for all members of a community.
So as the city continues to intensify in the central areas of the city, including along the LRT stops, it is increasingly important that new active transportation networks, so bike lanes, sidewalks, multi-use trails, be built to connect emerging neighborhoods, new neighborhoods, and also for there to be new parks and upgrading existing parks to support the quality of life for the citizens and businesses in Waterloo.
So we are currently working on our first ever parkland strategy that is going to guide us through this process of transforming our parks to be able to fulfill the needs of our changing community. I think it's very important that you find your political and community champions to help to move things forward and explain to people in very simple terms why this is so important. That you take the time, we take the time, create the vision and put in the resources today to create the spaces so that we don't wake up in 20 years with a city full of people living in apartments and not having park spaces that can fulfill their needs, because nobody wants to live in cities like that.
In my view, cities are kind of the front lines of the transition towards sustainable communities. We have a lot of fairly abstract, global information about the climate, about biodiversity, about the health of our oceans or water supply. And that's really important as an input to our decisions. But all of it comes down to how you and I live our lives, how far I have to walk or drive my daughter to school, what foods I eat in my kitchen, whether I can walk through an urban forest and find some calm, find some peace. That to me is how those abstract global ideas become real.